Hey folks, John Cantera, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter here. Happy Friday to you. Hope you've had a good week. And it's wrapping up. And I know the Logistics Lounge is going to be coming on here in a few minutes. So I want to go ahead and get this going for y'all. This is the final part of our fraud prevention series. This is version 2.0 that we are wrapping up, and we will be coming back on July 3rd with the next iteration, version 3, as we undergo a update and rewrite in support of the Freight Fraud Task Force. So before we get that going, I would like to point out, hey, check out that logo up in the upper right-hand corner. That is the new logo for AccuBid Pro, our sponsor. And just to mention, for our sponsor who's been with us now for 6 months, and we are grateful for the support that Jimmy has provided us over the last 6 months. When you use AccuBid Pro, it is extremely helpful in trying to manage your costs. What a lot of people don't seem to understand is that your costs are constantly changing. Depending on the number of miles that you run every week, your cost per mile is going to shift. So utilizing AccuBid Pro over a long period of time, we're talking about over the course of a year, is going to help give carriers a far better understanding of how their costs map out week over week, as opposed to just using it once, figuring it out what your costs are for a week or for a month. Guys, your costs are constantly changing. Monitor your performance. That way you can adjust your operations accordingly. Bid better with AccuBid Pro.
Tired of spending hours bidding on loads and second-guessing your profits? Introducing AccuBid Pro, the mobile app designed for the everyday owner-operator. We simplify load bidding, making it fast, accurate, and stress-free. Know your operating costs up front to ensure every load is profitable. Plus, for a limited time, enjoy a 30-day free trial. Stop guessing and start earning. Download AccuBid Pro today, available now in the App Store. Bid better with AccuBid Pro.
As you all know, we do this series literally free. AccuBid Pro is the only sponsor that we have, and they help to pay the bills as far as streaming costs and all that, which is very helpful. But we do a lot of work to try to bring this information to everybody. So please do us a favor and provide some support whenever you can. Buy me a coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/stopthescampodcast, and you can donate to help keep the work that we do free for those who become victims of fraud. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into part 12 so we can wrap this up and wrap up everybody's week, and then we all can get on to the Logistics Lounge and follow those guys. But the common platforms that exist when it comes to vetting, as every carrier and broker does know: MCP, My Carrier Portal. It's owned by Descartes. Great platform. They deal with screening. They deal with carrier setups, tracking. Specifically, they own MacroPoint, so they have MacroPoint tracking. And there's integrations throughout their entire platform. And those integrations are what make that platform so valuable to brokers. In fact, here at Stop the Scam, we recommend MCP above all other platforms that are out there as the closest thing to a one-stop solution for brokers when it comes to vetting carriers. We will caveat that by saying that there is no such thing as a silver bullet when it comes to vetting platforms to 100% ensure that you're always using good carriers. You need a multi-layered defense, and we will talk more about that when we release version 3 of this series coming up in July. RMIS is another big one, owned by TruckStop, and again, screening, setup, and tracking. They use Trucker Tools, but again, a pretty darn good platform overall. It is one of the older platforms, and it's starting to fall behind a little bit when it comes to some of the security that has been put into it. Highway and MCP have been updating their security platforms more often, but it does not mean that RMIS is bad by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, for smaller brokers out there, the bottom line is going to be cost, and that is something we here cannot exactly speak to. DAT is another good platform when it comes to screening and setup. They do not have a tracking platform that we are aware of yet, but I do believe they're in talks to try to acquire one. And they're trying to do what they can to keep up. I think that's probably the lesser of all of these services, but I believe it is also the least expensive. And Highway, every carrier out there knows Highway and knows that Highway can be a pain, especially through the setup process, and they utilize ELD tracking. Carriers, I understand the concern for privacy. I truly do. But tracking is something that's never going to go away. Let's face it, you're carrying $100,000, sometimes several $100,000 worth of somebody else's money. And they want the ability to track that, especially since cargo theft is at an all-time high. With that being the case, we need to knuckle down, accept the tracking, and move on, because it's going to happen and it's not going away. Okay, so that's my soapbox discussion for the day. Some of the other platforms that exist out there, Carrier 411. You all know how I feel about Carrier 411. You all know I'm a huge critic of it, but it does have its purposes. I will give it that. It is launching a new setup utility and a carrier-based tool this year in 2025, which is going to come with a facelift to the main Carrier 411 platform for brokers. It's going to be interesting when it goes into effect, because new features will be put online. We will do a separate show on those new features once that goes live. Carrier Assure is another popular one that does screening. Carrier Assure provides a letter grade against various carriers for a whole variety of rating criteria, which no one exactly knows what goes into that rating criteria. What we do know is that box trucks, hot shots, the Sprinter vans, the non-CDL types are always a D or less in the platform. So take that for what it's worth. Safer, of course, government's own platform, good for screening. It's got fairly up-to-date information, certainly within the last 24 hours. And that's a great place to go when you're second-guessing something you might be seeing on another platform like Carrier 411. Because let's face it, the other platforms are always going to lag behind Safer. Safer is always going to have the most up-to-date information. So when a broker sits there and tells you, well, Carrier 411 says that you're not valid due to this, that, and the other, but you are in Safer, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do at Carrier 411. But some of the other platforms, you can sit there and say, hey, double check Safer, because we're good at Safer. And Safer, at the end of the day, is the one that counts. Carrier OK is another good one. And what I like about Carrier OK is it provides regular information on brokers and carriers can subscribe to this. So that does help a little bit. My absolute favorite, though, is Freight Validate. And as you notice, Freight Validate is not a sponsor of Stop the Scam. Well, certainly not yet. We'd love to see that change. But we love this platform. We love this platform because it focuses entirely on regulatory requirements, not on a broker's feelings on how a carrier performs, not on ratings, not on any of that. It's all about, does the carrier or the broker meet federal requirements to maintain their authority? Period. End of story. For example, if their place of business is a P.O. box, automatically they will have a red X. We could be talking about TQL. If it has a P.O. box as a place of business, it will have a red X. It's that simple. And you're going to find a lot of the bad guys that are out there have red X's. So it's a great platform, in my opinion. But again, there is no silver bullet platform. A layered defense is always best if you are a broker. And frankly, if you're a carrier too. Carriers, you got to be screening brokers like the brokers screen you. There's just nowhere near as many tools. But that's why we talk about them. What is involved in vetting these carriers? A lot. What brokers are typically looking for, and I'm saying typically because every broker is different in their requirements. They're looking at your authority, specifically the age of your authority. Is your authority valid? First off, of course, but the age of your authority. And I think most people in this industry, especially new guys, are figuring out that if you have less than 6 months of active authority, most brokers will not work with you operating on the spot market. So that becomes a challenge every which direction you go. A competent dispatcher or a competent carrier can navigate that minefield a little bit better by being properly set up in MCP, RMIS, highway, having the ELD connections done, all of that stuff already done ahead of time. That will make a carrier at least appear to be more trustworthy in a broker's eyes, and a broker will be willing to take more chances on a carrier that says maybe 3 months. If you only 3 months of authority, having that ELD connection may be the difference between whether or not a broker's willing to work with you. So things happen, and of course, as Eric's pointing out, there are even some that will require you to have a year or even 2 years. I saw one at 5 years about a month ago. Just take that for what it's worth. Every broker is different. Your insurance requirements. Some will require a higher requirement when it comes to your vehicle liability or your cargo coverage, either because of the value of the cargo or as a general standard. FMCSA's requirement is $750,000. Most brokers are requiring $1 million when it comes to vehicle liability. So know what you're up against when it comes to dealing with the broker that you're booking with. They're looking at your W-9. Is your W-9 current? Most brokers will take something that's within the last year. Sometimes if the year turns over, I know in January, if I did a W-9 for one of my carriers in December, come January, they're asking me for a brand new one. Hey, you know what? It happens. Payment method. Most carriers deal with factoring companies. That's fine. If you don't do that, you're invoicing direct to the broker, and you can do that either by QuickPay or by your standard 30-day net terms, or whatever the net term is for those brokers. Why payment method matters to brokers when you're vetting a carrier. A lot of times the scammers are looking for quick pay. So if you are a carrier who hates using factoring companies, always goes after quick pay, understand that you may have a little flag up against you because you're constantly asking for quick pay. It's going to happen. All you got to do is provide great service, be professional and open about everything you're doing, and no one's going to have any problems. But understand that is a flag. Safety scores are always good. There are some brokers out there that live and die by your safety score, and that safety score is determined by what is seen in roadside inspections. We're not just talking about out-of-service scores, though there are some that only focus on your out-of-service percentage. They're also looking at the different types of violations you get if you're not taken out of service, yet you still got a violation. Those are listed. And if it's a significant type of issue for that particular broker, they may keep you from getting loads. What if it's an hours of service issue, but it's not enough to take you out of service? It still counts against you and can be held against you by specific brokers. Of course, inspections, we are not a fan at all of inspections being a criteria as to for vetting carriers, but whether we like it or not, it is. So if you do not have a roadside inspection within the last 2 years, you could encounter resistance with a broker trying to book loads. Tracking. Like I said before earlier, tracking is a must. Tracking will never go away. You just got to do it, guys. Hate to do that to you. ELD connections are the same thing. A lot of brokers are switching to highway. Highway is being considered the gold standard among a lot of brokers in how they manage data as well as verification. And that's all well and good. But if that is the standard that's being set, make sure your ELD is properly connected. I can tell you from experience, if you set up your ELD right and your insurance VIN numbers match what your ELDs are showing that are connected to highway, you breeze right through those setups in seconds, almost as fast as MCP. But MCP is still faster. I just got to say. But it's still very fast. And that's a good thing. It's when you don't have everything matching up that trying to set a carrier up in highway becomes a bloody freaking nightmare. And the last thing, of course, which is what we talked about back in part 10, reputation management. Brokers are going to be looking very closely at Carrier 411 freight guards. They're going to be looking at watchdog reports from TIA. They're going to be looking at Google even. So watch those types of issues. Anything that gives a review that can be bad on a carrier can be used against them, and often is, especially for something out of Carrier 411 or Watchdog. And yes, of course, Highway is going to get thrown in there too with Highways reports. Now, carriers, when you're vetting brokers, these are the things you need to look at. First and foremost, authority. Is their authority active? I have come across brokers that I've tried to do business with that when I vet them, turns out that they don't have an active authority. They don't even know it. It happens. It happens to the best of us. Check for insurance, specifically the surety bond. A broker is required to carry a minimum $75,000 bond. And is that bond active? I can tell you, if you're working with a larger broker, you want to see more than $75,000 on their bond, especially if you happen to notice that their credit scores, which are a couple bullet points down, if you see their credit scores have been slipping recently, you really want to make sure that they've got enough in their surety bond that you don't get caught holding the bag if they go under. And we've seen it happen. Payment capability. Do they factor? Are they factorable? And, depending on whichever factoring company you use, most factoring companies have a credit check program within their website. You can go in, run the MC number, and they'll tell you whether or not they're factor it. Do they offer quick pay? Like I said, some carriers, they live and die by quick pay. Okay. Or just standard direct 30-day payment. Credit scores, I've already kind of touched on that, but typically you want to see a credit score over 90 and days to pay under 30. Your average broker is going to be sitting around 93, 95, and 21 to 25 days to pay. What setup platforms do they use? When I get a broker telling me that I need to run a setup, the very first thing I ask them is, what platform are you using? Because that's going to tell me how much work I need to put in to doing the setup and what I need to be prepared for. And more importantly, what does my carrier need to be prepared for? Because all of the access codes that I need to do the setup, my carrier is going to get them. So I want to make sure they're waiting for those codes when I need them. Reputation. Guys, carriers do not look closely at the reputation of a broker. The closest thing to reputation management on the broker side that can hurt a broker is word of mouth across social media. We're talking about, of course, you have the big mega brokers, the 3-letter types who typically have their own negative reputation out there in the industry, and everybody knows that. Why do they know it? Because there's so much exposure to it on social media. But carriers, you need to be looking at Google reviews. You need to be looking at DAT reviews and truck stop reviews for these brokers to know whether or not you really want to do business with them. Again, with any kind of review, and I don't care if this is Carrier 411 or Google or DAT or whatever, no matter what kind of review you're looking at, always take it with a grain of salt. A negative review is always, and I mean always, written in an emotional bend. So with that being said, if there's a negative review, take it with a grain of salt. Understand that somebody's upset. Try to read through the comments to see what really happened and try to take the emotion out of the verbiage whenever possible. Look at the damn contracts. Carriers, a great way to vet a broker is to look at a contract. There should be certain things that you should be looking for in the contracts. You should be looking to see if they have a statement in there about back solicitation. You'd be looking in there to see statements about paying carriers. You need to be looking for statements about accessorials and evaluate a broker based on what's in their contract. You need to stop and read those contracts. Too many dispatchers and too many carriers just click, 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 click to finish the setup and don't read the contract, and they can come back and bite you in the ass. That's a guarantee. Load verification after you book. This is the biggest thing that gets carriers in trouble when it comes to dealing with fraud. A lot of carriers out there don't know what too good to be true sometimes is. Those of us who have been in this industry know that when rates are at a certain level and then you see a load posted at double the market rate, that it's a problem. Well, folks who don't understand what market rate means, they don't know. And they are the ones who click on those loads and book those loads and end up getting screwed because they're dealing with a fake broker and they're getting supposedly paid this massive amount. And of course, they never get paid. So it's an issue. So we need to educate these young carriers. And we try to do everything we can to educate them as best we can. But they don't stop the scam until after they've been scammed, which sucks. But hey, we're trying to do what we can to get our name out there better. But verifying your load after you've booked, call the broker. And we're talking about the broker's corporate office, and verify the rate confirmation. That is by far the best thing a carrier can do to vet a broker. Talk to corporate. When it comes to small brokers, I'm sorry, brokers, carriers, you need to call the shipper and verify the broker. Don't talk about money. Whatever you do, if you ever talk to a shipper, whether you're on the dock or you call them or whatever, never, ever, ever, ever talk about money. You cannot do that. Do not do that, because it will come back again and bite you in the ass, carrier. So pay close attention. Now, if there is bad info, and some of these platforms have bad info, how do you deal with it? Well, first you kind of need to know what the data source is. Okay, and data source, particularly for FMCSA data, comes from two main places: Safer and a program called MCMIS. MCMIS. And MCMIS deals with all the safety data. So if you wind up getting an inspection, let's say on the 10th of the month, and here it is the 20th, and the broker says, oh, I'm sorry, we can't give you a load because you don't have any inspections. Well, I got an inspection 10 days ago. Here it is right here. Their system is not going to see it until MCMIS updates. MCMIS updates only between the 8th and 10th of every month, and it only updates once a month. So when it updates is when that safety information finally gets pushed into a broker's TMS or into the broker's screening platform. Then they can see the inspection report or whatnot. So don't get too upset with a broker if they tell you, you may say you have an inspection, but we don't see it here. I'm sorry, guys, that is the way it is. So make sure that any info that's there, if it's wrong, know whether or not it's even possible to fix. Inspection. Did I just lose my connection? There it are. Okay, we're good. Again, can the information be updated locally? Usually not, because the information is usually pushed disconnects again, folks. Again, apologize for any connection issues. This is the last part that we're publishing on version 2 of this series. We're going to go back and start editing and building version 3, and we will start presenting that on July 3rd. So please make sure you are here to catch that because that will have the absolute latest that we have in fraud prevention information. Again, if you support the stuff we do, please buy me a coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/stopthescampodcast. We would love to get a donation to help keep the work that we do free for the guys who are caught up in the scams who desperately need the assistance. Our regular show is always live Mondays, 1 p.m. Central Time on all Lounge Media Group social media sites. We will be having Gen Logs on Monday at 1 p.m. Be sure to check that out. That should be a great show. And if you ever need any help, you can always reach us at jcantera at stopthescampodcast.com, or you can talk to my co-host, Kate Price, at kprice at stopthescampodcast.com. Folks, it's the weekend. Stay safe out there, and whatever you do, don't let scammers take you for a ride. Take care. We'll have a good weekend.